is this?
You are safe now, Ethan.
I am
You alright?
just a bit, yeah.
We need to find a solution.
It was one of those cold, rainy nights when even the busiest city streets feel silent.
Abandoned. The kind of night where headlights blur in the mist and footsteps vanish into puddles. Somewhere near 45th and Belmont, a teenage girl named Maya walked alone, hood pulled tight, clothes damp, groceries clutched to her chest. She wasn't expecting to become a part of anyone's story that night, but fate doesn't wait for permission. Just ahead, she spotted something unusual: a luxury sports car, door wide open, hazard lights blinking, and beside it, someone was lying on the pavement, a young man, barely conscious, clearly hurt. Most people would have passed by, some already had, but Maya stopped. She didn't know his name, didn't know why he was there, but she knelt beside him and checked. He was breathing, barely. In his pocket, a phone. One name stood out on the screen: Jonathan Sinclair, a name known across the country, a billionaire, a man of influence, power. With trembling fingers, Maya made the call, and when the voice answered, deep and cold, she said just one thing: "Sir, your son is unconscious on the street. Please, you need to come." Silence followed, the kind of silence where judgment forms, where trust is rare. But after a moment, the man simply said, "Stay with him. I'm coming." She stayed, alone in the rain, kneeling beside a stranger, protecting him while others looked away. Minutes later, a convoy of black SUVs arrived. Security jumped out, cautious. But there she was, Maya, still watching over the boy. She didn't run, she didn't hide. She just stood up and stepped back. And when Jonathan Sinclair saw his son on that wet pavement, blood on his forehead, unconscious, something shifted, not just in him, but in the world around them. Because that night, a girl society would often overlook chose not to look away, and that changed everything.
The night had shifted darker, heavier, as if the heavens themselves were watching. Rain continued to hiss on pavement and rooftops. Lights from passing cars blurred like ghostly trails. But in one corner of the city, one girl and one boy had become the center of fate's stage. Maya stood in the cold, dripping rain, kneeling beside Ethan, her sweater soaked through, her hair plastered to her face. She placed one hand lightly on his shoulder, steady but cautious. Above them, thunder rumbled in the distance. In her mind, urgent thoughts raced. Get help. Keep him breathing. Don't let him slip away. She dialed 911, her fingers shaking. The operator answered. She gave her best description: location, condition, bleeding. But in the background she heard engines. Not just one. A convoy across the street, headlights split the rain. 3 black SUVs came to a stop. Security guards and men in suits spilled out, umbrellas and flashlights in hand. The tall figure she recognized, Jonathan Sinclair, stood in one car's open doorway. He looked older in person, lines etched around his temples, weariness in his eyes, power in his posture. He strode toward his son, past his security, ignoring their commands to stay back. Maya watched his face. He had called her. He had come. A guard moved toward her. "Stay back," he said sharply. She met his gaze. "I called you, I stayed. I didn't run." Jonathan's eyes flickered. He raised a hand. The guard paused. Jonathan knelt beside Ethan, just as Maya had been doing, and assessed the boy's breathing. Color, pulse. The adrenaline in the air felt heavy. He spoke almost to himself. "You're alive." "Hang on, son." Then to Maya. "Why him? Why are you here?" She swallowed. "I was walking past. I saw him fall. I couldn't just walk away." Security approached, ready to push her back. But Jonathan held up his hand. "Give me 5 minutes. Her help may be the difference between life and death." Inside the rain, the world felt silent. Maya exhaled, soaked, resolute. Moments later, a low groan came from Ethan. His eyelids fluttered. He tried to speak. His voice raspy. "Maya?" She leaned closer. "I'm here. Help is on the way." Jonathan's stern face softened. He barked orders into a phone. "Send the ambulance to 45th and Belmont now, and bring medical staff, special medics if needed." His security pulled out sleek LED flashlights, directing light across Ethan's face and Maya. Rain glistened on every surface. Time seemed suspended. Every drop of water, every distant horn, every heartbeat felt magnified. And then another car pulled up behind them, a black sedan with tinted windows. A woman stepped out dressed in expensive clothes, umbrella held high. She was Claire Sinclair, Ethan's mother. Her face a mixture of panic and relief. She rushed to her husband. He motioned her back. "Stay by him," he said quietly. Claire moved closer, her voice trembling. "Ethan, my son, stay with me." Ethan's lips fluttered. He opened his eyes slow, dazed. His mother touched his face, tears shimmering. Maya looked up at Jonathan. His eyes met hers. In that moment, he saw more than a girl in the rain. He saw honesty, courage, urgency. Ambulance sirens grew louder. Flashing red and blue lights spilled across the slick street. Paramedics leapt out, pulling stretchers and medical kits. They moved swiftly. One paramedic took Maya aside. "Did you cause this?" he asked bluntly. "Absolutely not," Maya replied, voice strong. "But I saw it. And I couldn't walk by." The paramedic nodded and turned back toward Ethan. Jonathan stood firm by Ethan's side. Claire wept softly, resting a hand on her son. Maya stepped back, dripping wet. Her heart thundered in her chest. For a moment she felt invisible until Jonathan spoke. He walked up to her, eyes serious. "You saved him." Maya swallowed hard. "I just did what I could." Rain dripped from her face as she turned away. Jonathan called his security. "Get her warm clothes, dry shoes, transport her home safely, and take over the ambulances." Claire approached Maya. "Thank you. You are a hero." Maya's knees threatened to give out. She nodded, voice lost. Jonathan watched her vanish into the foggy crowd, back toward the alley she came from. Inside the ambulance, Ethan lay, hooked to machines, being stabilized. The night had already changed. The call had changed everything. And Maya, young, marginalized, had pulled a thread that wove together two lives. A girl and a billionaire united by a moment of crisis. As the ambulance drove off, the rain's rhythm continued. But now something new had begun.
It had been 3 days since that rainy night. 3 long, uncertain days. Maya sat quietly on the edge of her bed, her phone clenched in both hands. She kept checking it, waiting for something, anything from the billionaire or his family. Not that she expected gratitude, but after everything that happened, the silence felt heavy. Outside her apartment window, the city buzzed. Buses rumbled past, street vendors shouted their prices, and children laughed from the nearby alley. Life, as always, moved on, but Maya felt like she was stuck in a moment that wouldn't let her go. She kept replaying it in her mind, the flashing lights, Ethan lying unconscious, the fear in his mother's eyes, and Jonathan Sinclair's voice when he told her, "You saved him." Her little brother came into the room, interrupting her thoughts. "Maya, someone's at the door." She blinked. "Who?" He shrugged. "I dunno. Fancy-looking people." Maya stood slowly and walked to the door. When she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. "I didn't think I had a choice," Maya replied, half joking. Jonathan nodded. "Fair. Please, sit." She did. He didn't waste time. "My son has been asking about you since the moment he woke up. Said you were the only one who stayed, that you didn't run when things looked bad." Maya looked down. "I couldn't just leave him there." "I know, and because of that, I owe you more than thanks." There was a long pause. "I had you looked into," he said quietly. "Not in a bad way, just background. School, family. I found out you've had a hard life." Maya tensed. "Why does that matter?" "Because it makes what you did even more meaningful," Jonathan replied. "You didn't help for attention. You helped because it was right." Maya bit her lip. Jonathan walked over to his desk and slid a folder toward her. "Not what I want. What I'm offering." She opened the folder. Inside were school documents, a university scholarship offer, and a job placement proposal at one of Sinclair's charity foundations. Maya was stunned. "Why would you do this?" "Because my son's alive," he said plainly. "And because you're the kind of person this world ignores, when it should be lifting you up." A well-dressed woman stood there, with 2 security men behind her. She wore a gray blazer, professional, but not intimidating. In her hand was a black envelope. "Are you Maya?" she asked gently. "Yes," Maya replied, suddenly tense. I represent Mr. Jonathan Sinclair. He asked me to deliver this to you personally. Maya hesitated before taking the envelope, and the woman added, he would like to speak to you today, if you're available. Maya looked down at her clothes, an old hoodie and jeans, and back up at the woman. Me? Why? The woman smiled softly. Because what you did wasn't small, and because Mr. Sinclair has questions, and maybe answers too. An hour later, Maya sat in the back seat of a black car with tinted windows. Her hands folded tightly in her lap. The city passed by outside, but her mind was focused on one thing. Why was a billionaire interested in a girl from a forgotten neighborhood? The car pulled up to a tall building. In the heart of the city, a glass skyscraper that seemed to touch the sky. Maya was led through security and up to the 47th floor, where she was welcomed into an office larger than her entire apartment. Jonathan stood near the window, looking out. He turned slowly as she entered. You came, he said simply. Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but she blinked them back. I'm not used to people helping me without wanting something. I don't want anything, Maya, Jonathan said softly, but there is something you need to know. He sat down across from her. The night Ethan collapsed, it wasn't an accident. Someone drugged him. Maya's heart stopped. What? What do you mean? Jonathan sighed, his expression turning cold. He went out with friends that night. One of them, a trusted family associate's son, slipped something into his drink. If you hadn't found him when you did, he wouldn't have survived. Maya sat in stunned silence. Why would someone do that? And then, slowly, she nodded. I'll help you, she said. Not because you're rich, but because Ethan deserves the truth. Jonathan smiled faintly. And just like that, a young girl from the streets and one of the richest men in the country formed an unlikely alliance. One born not from power, but from humanity. What came next would test their trust, shake their worlds, and uncover secrets that neither of them were ready for. But it had already begun. The girl had made the call, and nothing would be the same again.
The next morning felt different. Maya had barely slept, not because she was scared, but because everything she thought she knew about her life had suddenly shifted. She had gone from an invisible girl on the city streets to someone with a mission, someone standing next to a billionaire, trying to uncover the truth. And the truth, as she would soon find out, had deep, dangerous roots. At 9 a.m. sharp, Maya walked into the Sinclair Foundation's downtown office, now officially employed as a community liaison. It was a title that sounded simple, but her real task was much more complicated. Jonathan greeted her with a nod. You ready for this? He asked. She took a deep breath. Ready as I'll ever be. Jonathan laid out a file on the table. Surveillance photos, party invites, guest lists, medical reports. You know this guy? She asked, showing a photo of Ronan Hale. Malik narrowed his eyes. He comes in here every few days. Real quiet. Always sits in the same seat, never orders more than a coffee. But he meets with different people each time. Poor ones. Looks like deals are being made. What kind of deals? Malik shrugged. Could be anything. But every time he leaves, someone's counting money. Maya's stomach twisted. She texted Jonathan. Ronan's buying loyalty. Possibly planning something bigger. That night, Maya and Jonathan met in his private study. A room filled with expensive books, old clocks, and silence. He's recruiting, Maya said. In poor neighborhoods, my neighborhood. He's paying people to stay quiet, to follow him, maybe even to hurt someone. Jonathan stared at the fire in the fireplace. That explains why Ethan had no warning. No enemies inside our circle. But someone on the outside, someone paid or could have slipped him something. What do we do? Maya asked. He looked up, his face older than she'd ever seen it. We fight back, he said, but not with money, with truth. He pulled out a small flash drive. This contains every surveillance angle from the party. Most of it's clean, but there's one blind spot near the back balcony. That's where Ethan's drink was left for a moment. And that's where Ronan was? Jonathan nodded. We don't have proof, but we have enough to make him nervous. Maya's eyes narrowed. Then let's shake him up. The next day, Maya staged a casual run-in with Ronan at the same cafe. She wore a borrowed blazer, held a cheap tablet. and looked just confident enough to raise curiosity. "Or Ronan Hale?" she asked. He looked up slowly. "Do I know you?" No," she said. "But I know what you've done, Rye." His smile didn't fade, but his eyes lost their calm. "You've got 5 seconds to leave." "Little girl," Maya leaned in. "You left fingerprints on that glass. You stood in the blind spot. And I've got friends with more power than you think." Ronan's smile disappeared. "You're bluffing, D." "Maybe," Maya said, turning. "Maybe not." That night, Maya met Jonathan again. Her hands were shaking. "I'm not a spy," she said. "I'm not brave. I don't know what I'm doing." Jonathan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Neither did I when I started. But courage isn't knowing what to do. It's doing it anyway." She looked up. "Do you think he'll back off?" "Honor," Jonathan said grimly. "Men like him don't stop. They escalate him, and he was right. Because the next morning, everything changed. Jonathan received a message, not an email, not a call, an envelope. No return address, no name. Inside, a photo of Maya, sleeping, in her bed, taken from outside her window. A warning. She was in danger now. And there was no turning back. Some enemies send threats. Others deliver warnings. But the worst ones? They smile, while planning your end. Jonathan stared at the photo in silence. It was Maya, asleep, vulnerable, unaware that someone had been right outside her window, camera in hand. The picture wasn't just a threat. It was proof. They were being watched. He picked up the envelope again. No fingerprint. No markings. Just one sentence written on the back of the photo in red ink. "Back off, or she disappears next." His fists clenched. Money, power, influence, and he had all of it. But none of it mattered when the people you cared about were suddenly in danger. And he had grown to care for Maya, more than he expected. That morning, Jonathan called her in, not to scare her, but to prepare her. She walked in with her usual quiet confidence, still unaware of what had arrived. "Is everything okay?" she asked. He didn't say anything. He just handed her the photo. Her hands froze. Her expression didn't. It changed instantly. Fear, then anger, then disbelief. "Someone was watching me?" He nodded. "They want to scare you off." She swallowed. "Is it Ronan?" "We can't prove it," Jonathan replied. "But I'd bet everything I own that it is." Maya looked him in the eye. "Then I'm staying." He blinked. "Maya?" "No," she cut him off. "I'm tired of being scared. All my life I've had to survive people like him. Men who think they can hurt others because they have money or power. I'm not walking away." Jonathan leaned back in his chair. In that moment, he didn't see a young girl from the wrong side of town. He saw an ally. They made a plan. Step 1, secure Maya. She was moved to one of Jonathan's private residences. No staff, no tech, just guards he trusted. Step 2, follow the money. Maya had discovered Ronan was handing out envelopes of cash. But where was the money coming from? Jonathan's investigators began tracing the transactions, and what they found shocked even him. Shell companies, fake charities, foreign accounts. All of it pointed to a larger operation. Ronan wasn't just trying to take revenge on Jonathan. He was building an underground empire. A few nights later, Maya sat on the balcony of her temporary safe house thinking, but it wasn't enough. Because Ronan's next move would hit even harder. 3 days later, a fire broke out in Maya's old apartment complex. It wasn't a random fire. It was targeted. Someone had poured gasoline near the stairwell, then lit it from outside. Dozens of families had to flee. Maya's old neighbor, a woman named Tanya, who had once fed her when she was hungry, was hospitalized with burns. Maya was devastated. "This is my fault," she said. Jonathan shook his head. "No, this is Ronan's doing. He's losing control, and like all cowards, he's attacking the weak." Maya looked up. Her voice was cold now. "Then we need to finish this." Jonathan nodded slowly. "I agree." They brought in someone new, a cyber forensics expert named Kadim. Young, brilliant, quiet. Kadim had a theory. Ronan's entire operation was being managed through a hidden offshore server. If they could hack in, they could leak everything. Names, transactions, threats. But it was risky. Kadim warned, "Once we start, he'll know. He'll come for us." Maya didn't flinch. Let him. The digital strike began at 2 a.m. Within minutes, Kadim had access to files never meant to be seen. Hundreds of documents, videos, even recordings. She felt strange, trapped between two worlds. One where she was a forgotten face in a broken neighborhood, and one where billionaires and criminal networks played chess with people's lives. She thought of Ethan, Jonathan's son, still in a coma. If he never wakes up, she whispered, will any of this matter? Just then her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jonathan. Turn on channel 7. Now. She ran to the TV. There on the screen was a breaking news banner. FBI investigation into Hale Foundation begins. Allegations of laundering and coercion. Footage showed agents walking into Ronan's corporate office. Boxes being carried out, computers confiscated, employees led away in handcuffs. Maya's heart jumped. They had done it. They had drawn first blood. But victory never comes without consequences. That night, Jonathan received another message. It wasn't a photo. It was a voice note. A child crying. Then silence. Then Ronan's voice. You're not the only one who knows how to make things disappear. This war isn't over. It's just getting started. Jonathan knew it wasn't Ethan's voice, but the message was clear. Ronan was threatening innocent lives now. Possibly others who had helped them. He immediately doubled Maya's security. In one, Ronan bragged about how Ethan was just collateral damage. In another, he described manipulating lower-income families into silence with small cash bribes. And then they found a ledger. A full list of people Ronan had paid, including politicians, officers, and board members. Maya couldn't believe her eyes. This is enough to destroy him, she whispered. Jonathan didn't respond. He was staring at a name on the list. His own CFO, the betrayal cut deep. He picked up the phone. It's time, he said, the next day. The files were sent, anonymously, to every major news outlet, law enforcement agency, and corporate watchdog group. Within 24 hours, Ronan Hale's world collapsed. He was arrested on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, and more. Maya watched it all unfold from the balcony. But there was no joy. Just relief and grief. Because in war, even when you win, something is always lost. Later that week, Maya stood beside Jonathan in the hospital. Ethan was still unconscious. Machines beeped quietly. Time moved slow. She looked at the boy who had almost died. We stopped it, she whispered. But why does it still hurt? Jonathan placed a hand on her shoulder. Because you still have a heart. There are moments in life that test a person's core. This was Maya's. She sat frozen in Jonathan's high-rise apartment. The photo still in her hands, her own face, caught in a grainy frame asleep in her bedroom. Whoever took it had been inches from her window. She wasn't just involved anymore. She was being hunted. Jonathan paced the room behind her, phone in hand, speaking in sharp whispers. Increase security. I want eyes on her 24/7, silent, no uniforms. When he hung up, he turned to Maya. They know you're close. They're watching you now. Maya clenched her fists. Why not go to the police? Jonathan's expression darkened. You still don't understand who we're up against. Ronan has connections, political, legal, even media. He'll spin this before the cops can blink. Right now, we operate in shadows. Just like him. Maya swallowed hard, her voice lower. Then what do we do? Jonathan leaned forward. We hunt the hunter. That night, Maya didn't go home. Instead, she stayed in a guest suite at Jonathan's estate, a fortress of steel and stone in the outskirts of the city. Still, sleep didn't come easy. Jonathan swerved through back alleys with Maya in the passenger seat, heart racing. Tires screeched. Engines roared behind them. Maya gritted her teeth. You've done this before, haven't you? Jonathan's eyes didn't leave the road. Once or twice. Usually with stockholders, not gunmen. A bullet cracked their rear window. Jonathan jerked the wheel. Get down! The car swerved, smashed through a gate, and crashed into a canal access road. Just enough time to jump out and disappear down the side streets. Breathing hard, soaked in sweat and fear, Maya looked at him. You still think we can win? He didn't answer for a moment. Then we'd have to, because this isn't just about Ethan anymore. Maya understood. It was about corruption, control, and who got to survive. That night, back in the safety of his underground panic room, Jonathan laid out their final move. We crash his event. Whatever he's planning, and we interrupt it. I've called a few allies, silent investors, people he thinks are on his side. If they hear the truth publicly, his empire crumbles. Maya nodded slowly. And if he fights back? Jonathan's voice turned cold. Then we fight harder. The next 48 hours passed like a blur. News started spreading. Whispers of a billionaire feud, of betrayal. Ronan issued a public statement denying all accusations, painted Maya as a street rat seeking attention, called Jonathan a paranoid old man. But that only made people more curious. By the time Ronan's high-profile charity gala began, the entire city was watching, and Maya, in a borrowed evening dress, her hair done up in curl, walked in not as a guest, but as a storm. Every spotlight in the city pointed toward one place that night, the Grand Meridian Hall. Limousines lined the curb. Media buzzed outside, their lenses capturing the glittering elite. Inside, chandeliers shimmered, champagne flowed, and laughter echoed through polished marble halls. But underneath the glamour, tension boiled. Ronan Archer stood at the center, draped in arrogance and $1,000 tux. His smile was perfect, his charm impenetrable. Yet even he could feel it. The shift in the room. Whispers. Uncertainty. Some of his biggest allies hadn't shaken his hand tonight. Something was wrong. He adjusted his cufflinks, scanned the room, cut and froze. Maya. She wasn't supposed to be there. But there she was, walking in with quiet defiance, dressed not like someone from the street, but like someone who belonged. And beside her, Jonathan. Ronan's lips tightened. Behind the scenes, Maya's heart thundered. Her fingers trembled, hidden in silk gloves. But she walked tall. Jonathan whispered beside her, "Are you ready?"
She didn't answer.
She didn't need to. They reached the center of the ballroom, right where the orchestra had just gone quiet for Ronan's annual speech. A perfect interruption. Jonathan stepped up to the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice deep, commanding, calm. "I apologize for the intrusion, but tonight you deserve the truth." Confusion spread like wildfire. Ronan's eyes blazed as he started toward the stage. But it was too late. Maya took out the USB, plugged it into the projector, and the screen behind them lit up, photo after photo, video after video, every piece of evidence Jonathan's team had collected. Land deals, bribes, surveillance footage of Ronan's men tailing. Maya, voice recordings. A money trail that linked Ronan to a string of missing persons cases, shell companies, and even Ethan's overdose. The entire ballroom fell into stunned silence. Then gasps. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. A man in a suit quietly stepped away from Ronan's side. "This," Jonathan said, his voice cutting through the silence, "is the man who calls himself a philanthropist." Ronan erupted. "You're insane. This is fake. All of it." But even his voice sounded small now. Desperate. For the first time, people didn't believe him. Security began to close in, not for Maya or Jonathan, but for Ronan. Outside, the media swarmed as word broke. Ronan Archer, billionaire tycoon, exposed live at his own event. And Maya? She stepped out into the flashing cameras not as a girl from the streets, but as the girl who stood up, spoke out, and broke a legacy of silence. But stories like this don't end in one night, because the fallout was just beginning. In the following weeks, Ronan was indicted, his assets frozen, his name erased from boards and headlines. And Ethan? He finally opened his eyes in a quiet rehab center, unaware of the storm that passed, but safe from its eye. Maya visited him once, sat by his bed as sunlight filtered through clean windows. She didn't wake him. She just left a note. "You're free now. Be better than the world that raised you." As for Maya, she got a full scholarship from an anonymous donor, started writing. And one day she stood on a stage of her own, not with a USB, but with a book in hand. A memoir, "The Night I Called a Billionaire." And in the front row, Jonathan sat, no longer alone, no longer numb, but proud. Because sometimes, a phone call made in fear can change everything, even the course of power, even the heart of a city.